best thing you can do is kill me.
Why?
Because it's your only chance, brother.
Judge Dredd wasn't just a movie. It was a monolithic failure, a chrome-plated cautionary tale forged in the fires of corporate hubris and star-powered ego. But behind the golden eagle epaulets and the incessant screaming of Rob Schneider, it was a film that waged a war against itself, a blockbuster so misguided it committed a cinematic felony against its own source material. Before a single shot was fired, a young, punk rock director with a vision was handed the keys to a kingdom, only to find the king already on the throne. The star they cast wasn't just the hero. He was the law on set, rewriting the script and the very soul of the character to fit his brand. And the world they built, it was a masterpiece of design so expensive, so breathtakingly ambitious, that it buckled under the weight of a story that didn't trust its own darkness. These are 20 weird facts about Judge Dredd, a film that gave us the future of law enforcement and proved that sometimes the biggest crime of all is trying to please everyone. You have been warned. The sentence is the next 20 minutes. Number 20, the 80s action movie that never was. Long before Sylvester Stallone ever donned the helmet, Judge Dredd was trapped in Hollywood's development hell for over a decade. The film rights were first optioned in the early 1980s, and the project was envisioned as a gritty, satirical action vehicle in the vein of RoboCop or The Terminator. Several high-profile directors were attached over the years, including Ridley Scott, who was fresh off of Blade Runner and saw the potential for another stunning sci-fi dystopia. At one point, a script was commissioned from die-hard writer Stephen E. D'Souza, who imagined a much darker, more violent film that was closer to the comic's nihilistic tone. The project cycled through producers and studios for years, a legendary ghost that couldn't quite materialize until the star power of the 90s finally dragged it, kicking and screaming, into the wrong kind of light. Number 19, the Schwarzenegger anomaly. In the high-stakes chess game of 90s action stardom, every major project was a battleground between Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Judge Dredd was no exception. Before Stallone was officially cast, Schwarzenegger was heavily considered for the role and expressed significant interest. It's one of cinema's great what-if scenarios. Schwarzenegger, with his Austrian accent and larger-than-life, almost robotic presence, could have brought a very different energy to the role, perhaps one even more suited to the inhumanly stoic Dredd. However, the project ultimately landed in the lap of producer Edward R. Pressman and his partner at Synergy Pictures, Andrew G. Vajna, who had a long and successful history with Stallone on the Rambo franchise. Their loyalty and business relationship tipped the scales, and the role of Mega City 1's top cop went to Sly, leaving Arnold to conquer other cinematic worlds. Number 18, the City of London. Mega City 1, with its towering spires and grimy, overcrowded streets, feels like a quintessentially American dystopia. But the concrete jungle was actually built in England. The entire production was based at the legendary Shepperton Studios in Surrey. The massive, sprawling cityscapes were some of the largest sets constructed at the studio in years, requiring 5 enormous sound stages to house them. The decision to shoot in the UK was partly logistical, thanks to the studio's space and talented British crews, but it also gave the film a unique, slightly off-kilter aesthetic. It was an American nightmare filtered through a British lens, a transatlantic production that created one of the most memorable, if chaotic, sci-fi cities of the decade. Number 17, the Lawgiver's real-life counterpart. The iconic Lawgiver firearm used by the judges is a beast of a weapon, capable of firing 6 different types of ammunition at a voice command. The prop wasn't a completely fictional design. It was built upon the chassis of a real-life firearm. The prop department used a 9 Beretta 92 FS pistol as the base, and then built the futuristic, oversized shell around it. This gave the weapon a realistic weight and feel for the actors. In a strange twist, the Beretta 92 FS was the standard-issue sidearm for the United States Armed Forces at the time, lending an unexpected layer of authenticity to the future of law enforcement. The final prop was so bulky and impressive that it became a character in its own right. Number 16, A Tale of Two Ricos. The film's central villain, Rico Dredd, played with scenery-chewing glee by Armand Assant, is a radical departure from his comic book counterpart. In the original The Cursed Earth and the Judge Child sagas from the 2000 AD comic, Rico was Dredd's brother, but he was a corrupt judge who was sentenced by Dredd to 20 years on the penal colony of Titan. He returns much older, physically scarred from the harsh atmosphere and seeking revenge. The movie completely rewrites this. It introduces the Janus Project, a cloning program that created both Dredd and Rico, turning them from biological brothers into genetically engineered twins. This change was a classic Hollywood move, creating a cleaner, more simplistic good twin versus evil twin narrative that jettisoned the comic's grittier, more complex backstory. Number 15, The Cursed Earth Detour. One of the most beloved and epic storylines in the Judge Dredd comics is The Cursed Earth, a sprawling saga where Dredd must travel across the radioactive wasteland outside Mega City 1. The filmmakers paid homage to this by including a sequence where Dredd is exiled and must journey through the wasteland. However, a significant subplot was filmed and then almost entirely deleted from the final cut. The sequence involved Dredd and Fergie encountering a community of devolved, cannibalistic hillbillies. The scene was intended to be a dark, horror-tinged moment, but it was heavily trimmed for pacing and to avoid an even harsher rating from the MPAA. The only remnants of this sequence are the brief appearance of the cannibal family, led by actor Scott Wilson, and the imposing figure of the Angel Gang. Number 14, the Land Rover of the Future. In the world of Mega City 1, even the taxis are built like tanks. The yellow hovercabs that populate the city's streets were not futuristic CGI creations. They were fully functional, drivable vehicles built by a surprising manufacturer, Land Rover. The production struck a deal with the iconic British car company, who provided them with 31 brand new military-spec Land Rover 101 forward control vehicles. A futuristic fiberglass shell was then built over the Land Rover chassis. This practical approach gave the world a tangible, gritty reality. After filming, most of these unique vehicles were sold off and have since become prized, if bizarre, collector's items. Number 13, the Angel of Death. The iconic Angel Gang, a family of psychotic wasteland criminals from the comics, make a memorable appearance in the film. However, their on-screen incarnation is a dramatically streamlined version of their comic book origins. In the comics, the gang is led by the fanatical patriarch Elmer Pa Angel and includes his sons Link Jr. and the monstrous, metal-headed Mean Machine. The movie condenses this, making the Angel Gang a small family of cannibals living in a cave, with the patriarch played by James Remar. The film's version of Mean Machine Angel is still a hulking brute, but his famous Dial-A-Rage head dial is much smaller, and his origin as a cybernetically enhanced maniac is completely ignored, reducing one of Dredd's most formidable foes to a simple, roaring henchman. Number 12, the Robot with a Soul. One of the film's most impressive practical effects is the ABC Warrior, a reprogrammed war droid that Rico uses as his personal bodyguard. The robot was not a CGI creation or a simple man in a suit. It was a hugely complex and expensive animatronic puppet that took a team of special effects artists, led by veteran Chris Cunningham, who would go on to direct iconic music videos for Effects Twin and Björk, over 2 months to build. The result was a stunning piece of old-school craftsmanship. However, the robot was notoriously difficult to operate on set, and its limited screen time belies the incredible amount of money and effort that went into its creation, making it a perfect symbol of the film's "go big or go home" production philosophy. Number 11, the comic relief nobody asked for. Perhaps the most universally criticized element of the film is the inclusion of Rob Schneider as Herman Ferguson, or Fergie, Dredd's comedic sidekick. The character was a classic 90s studio mandate, shoehorned into the script out of fear that the film was too dark and that Stallone's Dredd was too humorless. Don't believe me, the character of Fergie does not exist in the comics. Schneider, who was at the height of his Saturday Night Live fame, was brought in to lighten the tone, but his incessant screaming and goofy antics clashed horribly with the grim, fascistic world of Mega City 1. His presence is a constant reminder of the studio's lack of faith in the source material, a walking, talking embodiment of the film's identity crisis. Number 10, the X-rated Judgment. Director Danny Cannon, a fan of the comic's brutal violence, originally shot a much gorier and more intense version of the film. This initial cut was so bloody that it was promptly slapped with an NC-17 rating by the MPAA. To secure the financially necessary R rating, the filmmakers were forced to make significant cuts. The gruesome death of the cannibal patriarch, who is impaled on a large skewer, was heavily trimmed. Rico's final death, where he is thrown from the Statue of Liberty, originally showed his body graphically hitting the ground. Number 9, the Sound of the Law. One of the film's undisputed high points is its bombastic and epic musical score, composed by the legendary Alan Silvestri. Fresh off his acclaimed work for films like Back to the Future and Predator, Silvestri delivered a powerful, militaristic, and soaring orchestral score that perfectly captured the scale and fascist grandeur of Mega City 1. The main theme is an unforgettable piece of 90s action music, a heroic march that ironically lends a sense of nobility to the film's morally gray protagonist. Number 8, the Forgotten Comic Scribe. John Wagner, the co-creator of Judge Dredd, had a famously strained relationship with the 1995 film. He was brought on as a consultant early in the process, but felt his input was largely ignored. He has publicly stated that the filmmakers told the wrong story, focusing on a generic evil twin plot instead of tapping into the rich, satirical world he had created. His biggest criticisms were aimed at the film's attempts at humor, and most famously, the decision to have Dredd remove his helmet. In a 2012 interview, he summed up his feelings succinctly. "The story had nothing to do with Dredd. Stallone was Dredd in name only. It was the ultimate condemnation from the character's own father." Number 7. The director in exile. At just 28 years old, British director Danny Cannon was a bold and surprising choice to helm the massive blockbuster. A huge fan of the comic, he had a strong visual style and a vision for a dark, violent, and satirical film. However, he quickly found himself in a power struggle with his star, Sylvester Stallone. Stallone, at the peak of his fame, wielded immense creative control, demanding script changes that lightened the tone and humanized Dredd. The two reportedly clashed frequently on set, with Stallone effectively becoming the film's co-director. Cannon was allegedly locked out of the editing room during post-production, and the final cut of the film is said to be much closer to Stallone's vision than his own. Cannon has since referred to the film as a cautionary tale. Number 6. The Mean Machine That Wasn't. The design of Mean Machine Angel in the film is one of its most baffling creative choices. In the comics, Mean Machine is a terrifying cyborg with a massive metal dome for a head and a dial that controls his rage from 1, surly, to 4, brutal. The film's version, played by an uncredited Christopher Adamson, reduces this iconic design to a man with some crude metal plates bolted to his forehead and a tiny, almost unnoticeable dial. It's a cheap-looking and deeply disappointing interpretation that completely misunderstands the character's grotesque appeal. Number 5. The Fashion of Fascism. The iconic black leather uniform of the judges was given a high-fashion European makeover for the film. The costumes were designed by the legendary Italian fashion house Versace. Gianni Versace himself took a personal interest in the project, creating a look that was more suited to a Milan runway than the grimy streets of a dystopia. The most notable addition was the massive, ornate golden eagle shoulder pad, a piece so large and impractical it looked like it could take an eye out. While visually striking, the sleek, fetishistic look of the Versace costumes felt oddly clean and out of place. Another element that seemed to misunderstand the gritty, functional aesthetic of the comic. Number 4. The Unprecedented Budget. Judge Dredd was a colossal financial gamble. With a final budget estimated to be around $90 million, it was one of the most expensive films ever made at the time, costing more than contemporary blockbusters like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, Judgment Day. A huge chunk of this budget went into the incredible practical effects and massive set construction. The production spared no expense in building Mega City 1 from the ground up. This massive price tag put enormous pressure on the film to be a global smash hit. When it ultimately underperformed at the box office, grossing only $113 million worldwide, it became a certified financial disaster, a cautionary tale about unchecked blockbuster spending. Number 3. The Clone Conspiracy. The entire plot of the film hinges on the reveal that Dredd and Rico are clones from the Janus Project, a secret eugenics program designed to create perfect judges. This entire storyline, which forms the spine of the film, was invented for the movie. It has absolutely no basis in the 2000 AD comics. This decision was a fundamental misunderstanding of the character. In the comics, Dredd is just a man, albeit a highly trained and dedicated one, who has completely subsumed his identity into the abstract concept of the law. By making him a genetically engineered supercop, the film strips away the very thing that makes him compelling, the idea that any man could, through sheer force of will, become the living embodiment of justice. Number 2. The Star Who Became the Law. Sylvester Stallone's contract for Judge Dredd gave him an incredible amount of creative control, and he used it to reshape the film in his own image. He reportedly demanded numerous script rewrites to make the character of Dredd more heroic, more emotional, and crucially, more funny. He was instrumental in the casting of Rob Schneider to add comedy and insisted on a romantic subplot with Judge Hershey. Stallone's vision of Dredd was that of a classic Stallone action hero, a misunderstood tough guy with a heart of gold. This was a complete betrayal of the comic's Dredd, who is an unfeeling, uncompromising, and deeply unpleasant fascist. Stallone didn't want to play Judge Dredd, he wanted Judge Dredd to play him. Number 1. The crime of removing the helmet. The single most infamous and unforgivable sin of the 1995 film is the decision to have Dredd remove his helmet. In over 40 years of comic book history, Judge Dredd has almost never shown his full face. His helmet, which perpetually obscures his eyes, is a symbol of his office. It represents the idea that he is not a man, but an anonymous instrument of the law, faceless, implacable and incorruptible. The filmmakers, and specifically Sylvester Stallone, felt that a star of his magnitude could not spend an entire movie with his face hidden. Dredd removes his helmet less than 20 minutes into the film. In that single moment, the entire philosophical core of the character was destroyed. It was a decision driven by ego, not story, and it remains, to this day, the ultimate cinematic crime in the eyes of every 2000 AD fan. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was cult infamy. And there you have it. What movies should we do next? Leave your suggestions in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video.